So for pondering my life journey, I've noticed these points that really stand out, these hallmarks. And I want to relay these bits and pieces to you because I think they're of great importance and really provide some significant insight into how realizations, how insights arise, and how this intuitive knowing is already within us from the beginning. Because you see, when I was just about 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 years old, I continuously experienced these shadow beings, these entities that would just stand outside in the corridor, looking over me menacingly whilst I slept. And I cannot say for sure if these entities were truly as bad and evil as they appeared to me through the eyes of a 4 or 5 years old. But that might have just been my projection of fear onto them. However, there was a dream catcher out there, and I told my mother one day that the dream catcher needs to go. And she was like, why? She got upset with me. She didn't want to throw it out, and she got really upset. But she did end up throwing it out because I made it very apparent that I didn't appreciate it being here. And the moment it was thrown out, the entity, sure enough, did disappear. So there might have been some connection, I'm not sure. And also throughout this time, really leading up to my teens also, I had quite frequently these out-of-body experiences of just hovering outside my body, being able to see the entire room in this sort of like 360 view. Very strange, and at the time, just sort of ineffable. I didn't know how to describe what I was experiencing, and I didn't think much of it. And that's really interesting to consider that as a child, we don't question the significance of what we actually experience. And I think that is exactly why I later on negated all my experiences. But I had very frequent just mind expanding experiences of just laying in my bed and having these various experiences. Sometimes I had fevers, and it was like the entire room was just turned upside down. Like the bed was on the ceiling, and I just felt myself falling down towards the floor. And these sorts of things, which, yeah, they might just be fever hallucinations, but at the same time, I've had many experiences that came about just spontaneously, without me being sick, without anything being wrong, just through my own openness as a child. And I just think it's interesting nonetheless, whether you want to consider it one thing or another, to just consider that these experiences are real at the level of experiencing them. And so leading up to all this, I started school at 6 years old. And I remember half a year into my first school year, I left school with my backpack on, looked out the window out on the corridor, and I thought to myself, this cannot possibly be it. This cannot be what I'm signed up for the next many, many years to come. And the horror of it all was that, yeah, it freaking was. It was all that I had imagined and worse. It's pure brainwashing all throughout. And I later studied to become a school teacher as a young adult, and also confirmed with my lecturers there that, yeah, it was in fact invented as a means of brainwashing the public. So that same day, I quit being a school teacher, or studying to become a school teacher. For good reason, obviously. I don't want to be in the position of handling other people's children and messing with their minds, their suggestive young minds. And so then I grew up, and I just always had this inkling that there is more to life. And I was very interested in studying, in learning, in really investigating and questioning all subjects pertaining to everything that I could find. I remember my dad had these long rows of books, of encyclopedias that I would just read all day. Just flip through them, find information because I was hungry for it. So the learning that I didn't discover at school and the learning that I didn't get from watching TV led to me solely being on the computer. And I did get computer access from a very, very early age. I've grown up using this medium. But I threw out my television set at 11 years old because I just realized that there is nothing on there that is going to suit me, that is going to serve my journey, that is going to inform me of anything. Because I'm forced to listen to and watch what someone else has decided that I am to watch or listen to. And so I didn't accept that, so I threw it out. No hesitation, and I haven't watched TV since. Of course, I've visited other people, and there's a TV there, and it's running in the background, but I haven't willingly just sat down and watched TV, except under very rare circumstances. And so it just doesn't interest me, and it never really has since then. So that's another point at which I made a radical decision to change the course of my life, because I saw that what was being offered, what was being given wasn't truly in service of the highest good. So I grew up in a very skeptical sort of way, questioning everything and just being super dogmatic, scientifically dogmatic. We call it scientism nowadays. And so I was a hardcore militant atheist, just really being mean to other people, trying to pick their brains and make them wrong, which, yeah, bless me, at the time. It was one of my many ways of expressing myself and finding my path through life. However, it is interesting to consider that since I didn't make much of these experiences that I had as a child, I didn't really consider them when I later on just questioned the entire world. I was adopting a very nihilistic worldview, a very materialistic worldview, although I was still very keenly aware that I wanted to know the absolute truth of what is. And that has always been with me, this yearning for truth, whatever it is. Right? And then in 2011, 16 years old, both my parents died 2 weeks apart. And this led me down to a series of experiences involving my mum and dad visiting. Every single day my mum visited me for the next half year after her passing. And it's quite interesting again that this didn't really cross my mind, that it totally clashed with my entire identity structure and this belief system I had about life and the world. And that's really the interesting part, that our identity can be so fixed that we completely overlook what is right in our face. Because we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So I remember this quote from William Blake. He said, "As a man is, so he sees." I think it's that way at least, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Something to that liking, but you see, I was looking for all the answers in all the wrong places, and upon their death, and being deeply in this mode of despair and depression, anxiety, and just everything that I had gone through life, throughout my childhood and upbringing and all this, it just sort of came to this pivotal point of insurmountable suffering, really. Just unimaginable degrees of suffering that I don't wish upon anyone. And having seen other people online and listening to their journeys, mine pales in comparison. There's people out there who are going through absolute hell and still are making it through. When I look at people I know, at least, and compare my life, I think I had it hard. But boy, there's other people out there and I don't even come close. So for that, I'm grateful. And I'm grateful for all the hard lessons and teachings and suffering I've gone through, because sure, it was difficult, but I made it. And I made it through grace and through taking care of myself and not giving up. Because I've come to find that in moments of feeling the least supported, we may in fact be the most supported. And in the wake of their death, their passing, and just being deeply embedded in all this, I found that my entire life came crumbling down, right? And in the rubble, I picked up bits and pieces that still remained intact, and through that I was blessed. I was graced, you could say. Something moved through me and really led me to discover new paths in life, new visions, new ways of perceiving, taking me down this more spiritual route. And for a long time, I listened to various teachers and guides, gurus, whatever you want to call them, and the words resonated with me, but I didn't know why. What they said didn't make sense to me because it was a new vocabulary. I didn't have the experiences to confirm what they were saying. Something in me was drawn and was yearning to know more, to know what they were pointing towards, because that felt true on some level. And that has been a long journey, a very long journey, and it still is continuous. And there's been many points along this journey, and I would say especially psychedelics have brought more depth to it, and also just meditation, Kundalini yoga, breath work, just various modalities, ways of perceiving and teachings also, especially. Just various realizations that come about. And although it may seem intellectual at first, they will sprout and bear fruition in our own witnessing, in our own experiencing in due time. And there's just been many moments, many insightful realizations in this way that has just come about very, very naturally, also very forced in many ways, because I have this very forceful approach. I have had, I still have to some degree, this tendency to want to to really, push boundaries and really explore in this way, which is good. It's good. It serves its purpose, but it's also very limited. But you see, I've had many layers of realizations and just learning about the parasitic class, which I like to call them, how this entire world is structured, even up to the dimensional planes that are in the less dense layers just beyond our senses, that there are in fact beings, entities, forces that are governing all these planes. And for all that, to really find the anchor point, the centerpiece, the space in which it all arises, and to discover that to be what I am, has been pivotal, has been and still is so indescribable and so magnificent that it is plainly obvious that The truth that I've always been looking for, even since I was a very small child, has always been and is in the midst of experience right now. Always here and yet often overlooked. But I think it is the always ever present degrees of injustice and suffering and just complete wronghood that I've witnessed in my own life, in other people's lives, in the governing systems of this world, and just everything that you can point towards is in some way refracted, is in some way fragmented, is in some way not completely pure and in alignment. There's just something wrong. And I think I knew this from a very young age, and I think that is exactly why. When I look back upon my life, there was nothing particularly wrong about my upbringing, about my parents, nothing to pinpoint in this way. And yet, I just knew that this was all freaking wrong. And it's just so interesting that we may not be able to, at that age, to pinpoint or to know what exactly it is. We just have this inkling, this knowing, this intuitive insight that, yeah, it is wrong. And there are many stages which are very much akin to grief, when you begin to realize that your entire worldview has been a lie. You get angry, you get sad, you start reacting in different ways, self-destructive ways. You blame other people, you blame yourself, you try to find comfort in your new understanding and yet find yourself unable to. You try to go back to the ignorance, and yet you can never unsee what you've seen. And there are many stages through this, and I see many people at various stages of these realizations, and the more I come to know, the more I come to see, the more I embody and realize in myself, the less need I feel to take action in the world. In fact, the less inclination I feel towards taking any worldly action at all, or having these impulses. And lately I've begun to contemplate my entire notion or desire really to want to have an impact, to want to change the world, or to make the world a better place, to help other people. And that is not to say that I'm giving up or quitting in any way, or that I'm not still available for people to reach out in need. It simply means that less force may be required. That change really is not about other people, about the world, about the wrongdoers in the world, or anything of that matter, but really to understand in yourself, and not just intellectually, but experientially through the many layers of knowing. And we all know that experiential knowing is the only knowing that there truly is, but even to that, there are many degrees, there are layers, there are misunderstandings, misconceptions, and various points at which you can get hooked onto these ideas that limit you fundamentally. And I'm just seeing more so that there's a tendency in me to naturally want to give up these notions and ideas, beliefs. And you know what? In the past 2 weeks or so, maybe even more than that, maybe even closer to 2.5 weeks, I barely used my phone, barely. Just for very practical things. I've not had entertainment really. I've completely quit caffeine, and I find that these addictive tendencies are just dropping away effortlessly. I'm not doing anything to drop them. The striving for something to fill me up that I had before has just lessened. And I think that is in part because I'm more busy now, but also because I've done so many contemplations on what this all is lately. And through that, I've come to realize and see that if I'm really honest with myself and what has inspired me and still is inspiring me, what is really my utmost yearning, and always has been all throughout my life, as you can tell from this tale and story, is truth. That truth has been the only thing that has ever been meaningful to me. It is the only thing that has ever had my back, that has saved me time and time again. It is. I don't claim to know what that is, but something in me knows. Something in me is called to, inspired by, and truly yearning for what this is, to know what this is, and to not only know it, to be it, to live it, to experience it, to allow it to set me free, and to completely dissolve in that, and to give up anything that is not in service and alignment to that. And I cannot tell you what it is. I cannot tell you why me. Why has this presence made itself aware in my life? Why have I been brought up to know this, to feel this calling, even as a very small child? How is it possible that even as a child I knew that there was something more? I didn't know what it was. I still don't know what it really is. I know it is what I intrinsically am, that I know. But what it is or how, I don't know. And I accept that I never will, most likely. No. But isn't it interesting, and this is really the point of this video, to consider the great importance that we freaking know. That you know that there is more. And you know what that more is on some level. Intuitively, you know. And I want to really drive this point through, that nobody is to tell you what that is. Nobody can tell you what that is. You are to find out, my dear one, to find out for yourself. To find out the implications of this, to follow that calling, to listen in, to tune in, to go with that flow. I know it's super cliche, and I know to not... There are many paths out there. And I want you to be aware of that. I want you to not get caught in the traps of taking a position. And so that is why I'm being very careful here of not describing, of not putting any words or labels to it, but simply saying that you know that there is more. And you know what it isn't. You know what is not true. And I think that is really the saving grace, that from a young age I knew what wasn't true. I knew, I could see that these things that I saw reflected in my life were certainly not what this is all about. And by way of discerning, by way of seeing clearly what isn't true, what isn't in service, what isn't in alignment with what must be true, then we start to see then that there must be something more. And that puts us on the path of discovering what that is. And how that journey unfolds, no one can predict. I could not have predicted the many, many outcomes of my life, and the still continuous unfoldments, outcomes, arisings, realizations, insights that continue to appear and dawn on my mind. It is not my doing. In a way, there is that portion that wants to take credit for looking into and investigating, to practicing, to doing all these things that seem like steps, linear steps, but at the same time, there's no way that I could ever have in this moment. This is none of my doing. And that is how I know that my action taking is not it either. But alas, it is part of the journey. It is part of the journey to take action and to later discover where that action is arising from. So I want to, although this video is one big rambling rant, I want you to really be attuned and to stop being so forceful, start being more at ease. And that is easier said than done, because it is not done. It is not your doing. And that is exactly why it is easeful. Because there is nothing you can do. There is something you can do, but at the same time, nothing that you can do to make truth more apparent. You can only make apparent what is not true. And even that still is arising in what is, isn't it? So there are many layers, and yet it remains simple. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry this didn't make much sense to some of you, I'm sure. To others it might have, and for that I'm very grateful also. But if you made it this far, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Take care, dear one. Bye.